So, you've probably seen clips like this and wondered, how hard is it to actually recreate them? Well, in this final episode of my series of mastering one game mode of PvP in every video, I'm going to be quote unquote mastering sword PvP. Now, obviously, I can't become a true master of it because that takes hundreds of hours of playtime, and I just don't have that time on me.
I'm still standing, you just fade away. Don't you know I'm still standing?
Sword PvP is probably one of the most basic modes in Minecraft.
No mace, no crystals, no anchors, no weird one-shot items. Just you, your sword, your movement, and your ability to not panic every time someone starts comboing you. But somehow, this simple game mode is still one of the hardest to actually master. So today, I'm going to find out how sword PvP works, what techniques people use, what items matter, and whether I can actually become decent at it. Sword PvP is exactly what it sounds like. You fight another player, mainly using a sword, but the actual fighting is way more complicated than just clicking. In newer versions of Minecraft, especially 1.9 and above, you can't just spam click and hope for the best. You have to time your hits, control your movement, and know when to back out. That's why sword PvP is actually kind of clean. There are no random overpowered items saving you every 5 seconds. Most fights come down to timing, spacing, and decision making. And also, that means when you lose, you can't really blame the game, which is bad news for me. The only item in sword PvP is a sword, usually without sharpness, and for MC tiers at least, it has Unbreaking Free. The player has slightly enchanted armor, and that's it. You have no more items, no apples, no healing methods, or no potions, and definitely no end crystals. So the first thing I had to learn was spacing. Spacing is basically knowing how close you should be to your opponent. If you're too far away, you miss your hits. If you're too close, you might walk straight into their combo. The goal is to stay at the edge of your reach, hit them first, and then move in or out depending on what happens. At first, I was literally just running into people and hoping my sword connected. And surprisingly, that doesn't work. Good players don't just swing randomly. They keep enough distance so that they can hit you, but you can't easily hit them back. That's why sometimes it feels like your opponent has extra reach, but most of the time they're just moving better than you. Critical hits. The next important thing is crits, or critical hits. A critical hit happens when you hit someone while falling. That means jumping at the right time can make your sword do more damage. But here's the problem. If you jump too much, you become predictable. I kept jumping into fights thinking, okay, more crits equals more damage. But then I realized I was basically giving my opponent free timings. So the actual strategy is not just jump every second. It's about mixing normal hits and crits. Sometimes you stay grounded to keep better movement. Sometimes you jump for a crit when you know you can land the hit. Basically, crits are powerful. Then there's strafing. Strafing means moving left and right while fighting, instead of just walking directly forward. This makes you harder to hit and can mess up your opponent's aim. The mistake I made was strafing randomly. I would just spam A and D and pretend I was doing something advanced. But good strafing has a purpose. You can move to dodge their crosshair. You change directions when they expect you to keep going. And you use movements to create better hit timings. And don't just hold W forever. Sometimes tapping back for half a second gives you better spacing and stops you from getting destroyed. If you want to practice this yourself, there are a few servers you can use. PvP Legacy is one of the best known combat training servers. However, it's slightly outdated now that there's more modern versions like 1.20, 1.11. It still supports modern combat versions and lets you customize kits, choose maps, and do people. The server I personally play on is PvP Club, which is the main server for tier testing. If you play on Bedrock, CubeCraft is probably the best server you can use. It constantly has above 10,000 people online. After practicing for a while, I realized sword PvP is not hard because the items are complicated. It's hard because there are no excuses. In crystal PvP, you can say, oh, I got one shot. In mace PvP, you can say, oh, the mace is broken. But in sword PvP, if someone beats you, they probably just had better timing, better spacing, better hotkeys, or better movement. Which is honestly painful, because every fight feels winnable, but then you lose anyway. That's what makes it addictive. You don't feel like you got destroyed by some random item. You feel like you were close to winning, and you just need one more game. That one more game turns into 50. So is sword PvP worth playing? Honestly, yeah. It might be one of the simplest PvP modes, but that's what makes it good. You don't need a crazy setup, you don't need 10 different explosives, and you don't need to understand some insane strategy before you can start. You just need a sword and armor, decent movement, and enough patience to lose a lot before you improve. So I'm definitely going to keep practicing this, because I feel like sword PvP is one of those modes where you can actually see yourself getting better. And maybe next time I'll try fighting higher tier players, which will probably go horribly. But that's a problem for future me.